please start with prayer in our own presence. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Here today we have the National Executive members. We have Honorable Lamin Deji Dembe, Councilor Bine Morong, Honorable Dr. Lamin Mane, Women's Wing Vice President Adara Victor Ture, Deputy Party Leader Adi Mariam Biseka, Mr. Lance as well. We have the Deputy Administrative Secretary, Honorable Yakuma Dente. We have the Regional Chairman, Father Soko, the Second Deputy Chair Lady, Honorable Biden Kamara, Haji Swane, Derek Benike. Thank you all for joining us here today. We are gathered here to address a matter of significant importance of the United Democratic Party Inc. to the national as we approach the December 5th election. As you know, coalition talks are currently underway and it's crucial for us to play actively on our party's positions. Today we will outline our stance on this ongoing coalition discussion and clear our intention moving forward. Thank you. I hereby present the party leader, the Secretary General, the flag bearer, and the former Vice President of the Republic of the Gambia, His Excellency J.M. Al-Hadi Hussein.
I think Madam Moderator should stop referring to me as His Excellency, the former Vice President, because you know, I'm told that when people say His Excellency, the former Vice President, I change my way of working. I do it the same way. I think we should stop there. Anyway, thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Deputy Party Leader, the de facto Women's Wing President, Binta Ture, all members of the National Executive and Central Committee are present, distinguished attendees, members of the press. I say good morning to all of you. I am again honored to have your presence, you the dedicated members of the press, those who amplify and disseminate the voices of the voiceless. Always, when we invite you to our occasions, however short the notice is, you respond, and you respond in good numbers. I thank you very much. We couldn't have been visible, we wouldn't have been more audible without you. We thank you for partnering with us. Gentlemen of the press and distinguished attendees, our party, the United Democratic Party, has always believed that the future of this country is greater than the ambition of any individual or any single party. With this conviction, we responded to an invitation by the National Democratic National Alliance for Democracy, NAD, the Alliance for Democracy and Development, ADD. We responded to that invitation to a coalition talk that was initiated by this party. We want to here register our greatest appreciation to this thoughtful decision taken by ADD to convene or invite political actors to a coalition talk. We attended these talks in the company of 7 registered political parties and 14 CSOs and political movements. Throughout our engagement with this effort, we were very constructive, we are very honest, we are very sincere. We never minced words, we were never ambiguous in our position has always been. United Democratic Party has always believed that a party-led alliance is the proper foundation of any coalition. It is the viable foundation. It is the foundation that guarantees success at the polls. We have always believed in that. But in any situation, you do have contrary views, and we are very open to receiving and listening to other views that do not support a party-led alliance. There was, of course, a proposal for a candidate-led alliance. For the past several weeks, we have engaged in the discussions of which of the two models best suits us. And we almost agree that the proponents of the models advanced reasons why they think their proposal or model is the most viable one. We of the United Democratic Party have brought up history that in the past we have seen a candidate-led alliance in this country going to the polls, and the consequences of the victory or electoral success of that alliance, we all see, we have seen it. It has really fluttered because there was no independent candidate. You cannot have a party, you cannot have a coalition led by an individual who comes from a party, and you want to ignore the fact that that party, that individual's connections, the sentimental feelings he has for the party of which he has been a member will just be erased away just by resigning from that party with the pretext that he is an independent candidate and running on an independent platform. The platform may appear to be independent, but it's certainly not independent. The beliefs of the candidate prior to him being selected as the candidate-led, to lead the alliance of party-led coalition. His history cannot forget his history, cannot forget his connection. So we do not believe that independence is secured merely by resigning from your party. We, of course, have advanced that the model throughout the world, universal accepted model, is that pre-election alliances are built around the party with the largest membership in the country. We have shown that since 1996, UDP has been the dominant opposition party in this country. There is no dispute about that. And we have consistently been advocates of alliances in this country. In 2001, we accepted to go into an alliance. In 2006, 2011. So we have never really given our back to a united front that is intended to remove the incumbent, but not only to remove the incumbent, but also to ensure that the system is put in place that warrants, that a system put in place that really the Gambian people really are yearning for. We do not want a situation or a system to be created in the country where parties will go in alliances for the purpose of defeating the government. We always want to have an alliance that will put in place a system that affords every party the opportunity to contest elections on its own merit and seek office on its own merit rather than being an appendage to another party. That is what we believe must happen, and that can only happen when there is a change of system. And changes of systems do not come by themselves. System change through the agency of human beings. And we as political actors would have to be the agent for such system change. Of course, there is the view that figures don't matter. But if figures don't matter, why are you asking for a united front? You are asking for a united front because you believe that that will give you bigger figure that you can really prove. So if figures don't matter, then I don't know what matters. But we engage them constructively, and we've tried to convince our colleagues that optional, the viable option is for a party-led and not a coalition, not a candidate-led coalition. That is a fundamental principle that the United Democratic Party wasn't deviating from. And we didn't say that United Democratic Party must lead the party-led coalition. We said it must be a party-led coalition. And if there's an agreement that it's a party-led coalition, then of course other things like your strength and so forth will become considerations in whether which party should lead or which party should not lead. But apart from the fact that our position was not accepted, there was a move. In fact, not a move. In fact, a move has been adopted. A position has been adopted in setting up certain eligibility criteria. And I think, for me, it is an insult to really determine my eligibility on reasons other than that those provided for by the Constitution. For several years, when we have been in this country, managing the affairs of this country and serving in government in this country, our competence, our credibility, our integrity has never been called into question by anybody. The United Democratic Party believes that its chosen candidate, no candidate outmatches that candidate in terms of integrity, in terms of character, in terms of service to the nation, in terms of patriotism. But one of the eligibility criteria, and I'm sure when I read it out to you, gentlemen of the press, you will know that that is directed at Hussein Daba, no other person. And that eligibility criteria is loyalty to the coalition. They say the candidate must have no verifiable history of sabotaging coalition efforts, undermining joint candidates, or defecting for personal gain during critical coalition moments. Gentlemen of the press, since 2017 or 2018, those who oppose the National Democratic Party have carried a message throughout the country, throughout the world, that the coalition 2016 failed because of United Democratic Party. That United Democratic Party sabotaged the coalition 2016, that is why it failed. So you can see quite clearly that this criteria is directed at Hussein Dabo and no other person. How can we accept such a criteria for selection of a flag bearer, even assuming we agree to a party, to a candidate list? How can we agree to that? One will process selection process. We'll be asked questions, didn't you do this for coalition 2016? And then we are put again at explaining and debunking the false statements that they have been bandying all about. But another criteria, which I think is contradictory to their party-led, or to their coalition-led, candidate-led alliance, is grassroots connections. They say the candidate, he or she must show active engagement with, and I emphasize this, with party structures. Now, with which party structure would a candidate who is selected to lead as an independent candidate, which party structures would he be maintaining relations with? Of course, naturally, it would be his own party. It could not be a party to which he does not belong. So you can see that even though they do not accept party-led, but they realize that parties are very important in this whole exercise. If you cannot maintain relationship with your party structures, then your candidacy, the viability of your candidacy is certainly questionable. So apart from anything, the eligibility criteria for us goes contrary. So let me just contrary, does not conform with the Constitution. We accept all conditions that the laws of the Gambia provide for a candidate wishing to contest in presidential elections. We are not going to accept criteria, eligibility criteria, crafted by people who we know in the past have been calling for people to get together and fight UDP and NPP. We have them here. We cannot accept their eligibility criteria. So you can see that from the word go, the so-called CMC was crafting rules that are skewed against UDP. Not the disadvantage of UDP. That is quite clear. It is quite clear that those who claim to be the mediators have themselves expressed their preferences for types of models of coalitions or alliances in this country, even before they became members of the CMC. We have seen some who attended meetings of this coalition who were introduced as belonging to members of a political party, but then suddenly metamorphosed into something else. We have seen that. So from the word go, we realized that there was something that is not completely all right, completely right. But despite that, we are not pessimists. We are optimistic. We believe that with all of this, we could still engage in constructive discourses. We could exchange views. We could we could engage as reasonable people and come to a conclusion that best suits this country. You want to have a governing council. Why a governing council? When you have a constitution and other laws in the country that determines how the government should be run, that determines what powers and what discretions are vested in the president. And you want to tell me that you want to have a better constitution, but yet the constitution that you have in the country, for the time being, you have to disregard that. And you tell me that that is the right thing to do. UDP does not subscribe to political expediency at the expense of the nation's interest. UDP does not subscribe to political expediency at the expense of constitutionalism. UDP does not do that, and UDP will never do that. Because for us, accepting these things would be contrary to public policy. That you agree to be governed by a set of rules that is not provided for by the Constitution. I agree that when governments come in, you can really try to abide by traditions that are universally accepted without really having them legislated on. But you cannot really put certain things for selection of a presidential candidate that you know will run contrary to the provisions of the Constitution, and upon being elected, you take advantage of the situation. Look, the Constitution does not provide for this, so therefore I am not going to abide by it. That is not UDP. We don't accept things and then renege on them. We don't do that. And that is why one of the reasons also we reject the candidate-led coalition. There is, of course, power sharing. Power sharing, everybody agrees that in any coalition, any alliance of political parties, you will talk about how you share offices. I don't want to use the word power. How you share offices. You cannot really forge an alliance without a president. But should that be the prime focus? And that has been what the majority of the proponents at that discussion, that was the fundamental approach. What is it there for us? What is in there for us, for me, is the Gambia and nothing else. We cannot start thinking of sharing offices amongst ourselves when we have not addressed key issues, or we have not set ourselves the task of addressing key issues such as unemployment, the worsening economic situation, the corruption in the country, and other things that are retarding our progress in this country. Those are issues fundamental that have to be discussed first and foremost, and then agree on those things, and then you come to the last bit of it: how do we share offices when we are elected? We see some of the suggestions on the sharing offices. For us, they run contrary to what our fundamental belief has been. We want to keep civil service, governors' offices, out of the reaches of political parties. We want them to operate, governors operate, purely as civil servants in this country, not as representatives of political parties or government in any region. But then you want to allocate governors to party A, party B, so and so, making them political parties. And that is why today our governors are operating in ways and manners that satisfy the desires of the ruling government, because they are placed in place and not what is really in the best interest of the country. That is why today, when a governor sees or hears an alcalde being associated with a political party, opposing political party, they remove it from office. That is what we should stop in this country. But it's one of the things that this, one of the things that's proposed, in fact, adopted by the majority of the people attending this discussion. That is what acceptable to UDP. What also is not accepted to UDP is the selection process, the voting. You want to put UDP after investing 30 years in the politics of this country, having structures in every part of this country, having members of the National Assembly, having representatives in the National Assembly, having mayors, councillors. You want to put them at the same level as a CSO or a political movement that was just formed in 2026. You want to put them on the same level. Is that fairness? We believe we want to have a coalition. We want to have an alliance, but an alliance that is built on fairness, an alliance that is built on honesty, an alliance that truly reflects the democratic values of our country, an alliance that recognizes the strength of political parties. You cannot equate UDP with a CSO just registered in 2016. You cannot equate UDP with a movement that is just forming. Some of them, you don't. When they tell you some of them, you don't even know who they are. I am not in any way demeaning any of this, but we are talking about realities. And gentlemen of the press, I want to make this one thing clear. We will be very unambiguous about it. If any of the political parties that are engaged in this discussion have the same political strength of UDP, they will slap us if we UDP tell them that, look, we have to be candidate-led. They will slap us. They will consider us as people probably suffering from some mental syndrome that is incomprehensible. How can a party with representatives in the National Assembly, with representatives in the councils, which has survived in this country for 30 years, against all odds, its leadership tested and proven, consistency, sincerity to the nation, want to compare them with parties that, or movements and parties that are just sprouting up now? We reject it. And we reject it for those reasons, and I think any reasonable person will really agree that rejecting such a proposal is the most sensible thing to do. Acceding to such a proposal for United Democratic Party, if we do so, we will alienate all our supporters. And let me say that we are not in this thing because we desperately want to be president of this country. No. We are in this thing because we want to see a better Gambia. And we believe that a better Gambia can only be achieved through a party-led alliance. That party-led alliance will address the needs of this country. That party-led alliance will address the wants of this country and the dislikes of this country. It is that party-led alliance that will fight corruption in this country, as in fact the party who is advocating to have a party-led alliance is the party that has been fighting consistently against corruption in this country since 1996. All others that are speaking against corruption today are only repeating what we have said for the past 30 years and will continue to say. And we did so at a time when talking against corruption in this country was an anathema, because you risk the chance of being taken to Bambadinka. We didn't care for Bambadinka. And we spoke against the east of this country, and we continue to do so. to equate us with people who just want to go to the negotiating table to see what ambassadorial appointment I can have, whether I could be a consul general, whether I could be a governor, because to negotiate with them and agree to those things, I think that runs contrary to our conviction. And we have said at that meeting, we believe that if we are to fail, we must fail by our principles. Now, if we are to fall, we have to fall by our principles. And if we want to survive, we will survive by our principles. We will not really throw our principles because we want to be in office. That is not the UDP belief. That is not the UDP conviction. UDP's conviction is that you have to get office through legitimate means, just not through political expediency. Gentlemen of the press, with all this, the United Democratic Party has, after carefully considering all these issues, have been involved in 14 weeks discussions with our colleagues to form an alliance that will really remove Barrow, that we believe will have to remove Barrow from office. After all this, after really holding our hands in the preparation of our campaign materials, because we couldn't prepare any campaign materials that is only confined to UDP, not knowing what sort of alliance we would have. Having in fact lessened or reduced our political engagements, active political engagement, having reduced it, all because we just didn't want to go out and say UDP is the party. After all that, and we did it for good reason, we now have come to the very regrettable and unavoidable decision that we are pulling out of the ADD coalition initiative, the Alliance for Democracy and Development. We are pulling out of that initiative. There are other coalition initiatives, and we are very much part of that initiative. We will continue to participate in the discussions initiated by APEX, and we hope that we will be able to reach a reasonable compromise amongst participants. But in the meantime, I am calling on all other political parties who think alike like the United Democratic Party, who have the desire to salvage this country, to come and join the United Democratic Party, so that we build an alliance that will be formidable, an alliance that will stand up to Barrow and his so-called Grand Alliance and defeat them. You know we can't do it because Barrow and his Grand Alliance, we are contesting against UDP as a single party. And you see what we've done. We didn't win office, but you see how much we are affected their electoral ambitions. We've shown that we alone could do it. But now if you have other political parties to join us, the task will be much easier. And then together we will build the Gambia that is the want and desire of all who are patriotic. A Gambia that will fight corruption. A Gambia that will see nepotism through the back door. A Gambia that will place value on merit. A Gambia that will ensure that our young people are employed. A Gambia that will ensure that the farmers' produce are bought. A Gambia that will treat the farmers better than its civil service. How can you imagine the president giving a promise that's intended to secure votes that will increase salaries by 30%. When the average farmers own produce, the price of their produce has remained stagnant for the past 3 years. Not only stagnant for the past 3 years, but we are in the rainy season, and government is shamelessly saying we have paid the $1.6 million owed to the farmer in the middle of the rainy season. You know, this is not a government that really is willing to address the problems of the farmers, and this is what United Democratic Party and any prospective allies of it are willing to do in this country. Give the farmers their due, in fact, give them the premium prominence in this country than any other sector of this country. Gentlemen of the press, it is hard for me to really make this announcement, but it's reality. We cannot just go on pretending that things will work out when we know that the positions are irreconcilable. There is no use to really go on with the negotiation. The only sensible thing to do is really disengage and let those who believe in a candidate-led alliance go ahead and do their own selection of their own flag bearer. And those who believe in party-led, we appeal all of it to come, we discuss, and I'm sure we will reach an agreement that is for the good of all the parties in that alliance and for the good of this country. I thank you all. I think maybe when I the media will circulate the full written text to all the media.
Yes, Assalamualaikum. I would like to ask in the local language for the benefit of our local listeners. My name is Adam Fadera. I'm working for Membekere TV and Hope Digital FM. Telephone ni kawo kelati mandika kawo na puru na mandika la wala. Bawse ni kuma nyamale lu fajan ni na ta coalition la kaka Membekere. Fanda mene alo ko fe anding imam kambe wala maka kunde mene alo ko anato na lu la ko kili. La fe du ko fa ni nye puru na local listeners. Yin dal fajan mene alo ko wonni ko la constitution ko contradictory. Wala movement already. Anim fana leader no fana the political strength la strength member will compare to movement no la ka follow no be de media no ko follow no anim fana ya ita to bi la de garo ko wonna ya test ya long alim no mo mo santi ya test min do le place du mal anim min do le min do anim mo ne kawdo mo se ga tif mo ni la no so no men alin sai ya fana ko ala kun dal men pati ko dal UDP mo le ko dara ala jigo men yaadi ala ko da coalition ka dal men weke fo al be gagné no ni al gagné da ye bloqué wolum Sénégal da ko Sénégal na kala ko pour ne do UDP ma sa kun dana ko fa dal ko mo si fay ko
bari ya mera ni ko men ni be jabu lat ti do to boy lam ma jandu ba ta da asiyata babar bitu isa akumo kummalu isol fodron wolon ka fo gamol tento men yalon ka fo kita ADD la nyato bondi malik camara ani mi real sodo ka fo ko patiodu ya kafu nyoma puna kachake si masa kunda men bijanto si abondi no nyamen na masa kunda do may alon ka ko bakala gambian ko la haaju jaar langdi UDP nak ndene man ko di kilirola kiliro men ko ka bali ngake kilini ba hanin do fan kuma samena united onan kan kiliya be ngake to kiliro te kala ka ko ngake kilini nan ko di wala bannak tata nyin ka chaatole momo ote yaje kawo ko menya ta kel menya ka fonya ta kala nyame momo ni la mire ala tata dol tata je iko nga kafu nyoma bare be men tombonna asike moti me yalon kafo ko abela patio abe bolotole abe kala independent leti entel ko al nga kafu nyoma nga tombondiro ke mola member bola patio ko wotata ke patio patiti member bola ko but of course ni ngofo wala be ni ne fala ka ko an de laftal de alienter tombo ni da ko rokta ka ko ay bo patio ko is finance nana ko am falenti do alina patio tombo pour ko nyaton ka bar kambe man ko o kambe balia woto o mu kulati me yalo ka sa ko sulo mo lati alla nyanta kala al halajumato nala al halonya nal ma da ko rala mamira ku ko tambe jata da ko balia ka tala mo mena do o to mo lo ngamira janjang e ke ba UDP ko hanide te janjana de hani bi na kacha ngai ngonyo ngokan nganyo kan nganya fo si sondi no lafta men na ba wakati alikono inadna na sartolla ka ko be fefen tombona wa fanandu candidate led lomde ka ko candidato me yalo ka ko abe kala independence ya sartolle la wo nyanta melu timmandila pour isa tano kake ila flag bearer asilohe tere men fodon ka ko gambia la loi sarto en londi pour mo sikeno presidential candidate wakanyata bare ka CMC wala tata ye fansu sartol dada ke nati kabako mol nyanta wor sartol timmandila le jani isita ke candidate do asartol siata bati ado nie jube fan dolu islaf la jelela le kadu ka man amanke kuti na yano ka yawele mo si me kadu ko ni ko competence dalo damo ka ko patili da nyimba ko kambi menga banko nyinena tanga mera ka ko competent ayame competent le adani mol men fala be nyola wal yaro ka ka ma de competent ko sika to ni ko integrity daji ko patili da mo funta ko ko tafta nyimba ko nyaton ka yala imari ila daji ko il faut personne ni ka ko ila daji ko sahatale inni mel fanan denta nyola fo itabe ni ko men ni ne kaftema wal fanan sontal ka ko ila daji ko o be o ila daji ko nyaada jumale be CMC member bula ka ko Mr. Dabo daji ko mo nesi wala Mr. daji ko Mr. Dabo la no ay mune no jumale be ko men sof bari kam men fo don ka ko adu nga fo je to le du men tan ko mon politicien de nyim banko kam men sa ko atele daji ko sahata Usain Dabo daji nga fo ko politicien de nyim banko kam me yalon ka ko asafa ko ate do ko no nyim katami Mr. Dabo la moti jam men sa ko atele la fta nyim banko la katami Mr. Dabo la so al kanyi ko mon men tete ni kuma de amam mana so kuma la ni be mana so barbitu ni man la fi iman la fi daro be kadu kay lo sartol kono iko for dalil verifiable evidence wala ka ko CDR men na ka ko isa to nya yandi no ka ko temari men lafta ka ke candidate oti party led candidate e maketa molti me yalon ka ko imam kuke me yalon ka ko coalition la lonya yoko ke me yalon ka yoti nyale me yalon ka ko coalition 2016 kabri 3 years 5 years ngada loda ngaluwa fo adul bi be bol ba fo kadi ka ko 5 years lo wel ka ko nim president resign no president resign no but na resign ta vice president le batala so ye memira ka ko bela so kala o man soto duwa mo provide for itala miralia ban sabo mole ka ko dukare baldan alta ale constitutional ali alfan karandiala wala aleta mole ya melia mele constitutional ya karan ya al karandiala ya londia kana diam lal intero sanji tan lulu anin saba mbelwa kunna janto sanji tan lulu sabo kono constitutional cases men nyim banko kan akuma ba me ndela na beke so ko me ya lon ka ko anil luwa tamta mantra talen kuma fo kam gemen fo kam ku sahare so go ibe jumade ma woto ibe Usain Dabo le ma hanin santa ko ngata candidate le ay ba fala ko ha ito ko 3 years jan ito ko 3 years jan ito ko 5 years jan so ito wo coalition ito le sabote wadante palazzo le so ngalon ka ko wo yoni yo wulin din dala ka bar bi do ngandele de man fem fo don ko ni ma ran ka ko duwaye mem fo al ngata mawdam bana ni yo te bare lo sa tol fanal ko na nan fo ko isike moti me yalon ka ko patiola structures ila patiola structures ini constant contact shortly so isn't that as an independent candidate hanibi e ko ni na patio be do ko does it make any sense among sense make at all why I don't have ke mira nyame fam wala fam ni wala fam masa so ko bijete ina na fa ko ni be tombon rokela be tombon rokela bele be equal la vote la UDP ni movement o me yalla mo kam ko kunun namo ya lo no be bakanya na sembola de America ko mu do ya ro de America ko wo manke kutlinde la tanga kafu nyoma bana nga kafu nyoma to nyaka al nga kafu nyoma kana ke nyoke toti bari ko nga kafu nyoma UDP ngali ketu ko tel te ketula na fahamu ro tamita wala le ko tel te sonna ko hani state han fon ko ya reserve position ki stakeholders yol na ki mo fa jumal woni banda mo stakeholders yol mela ron ka ko wala ko telam CMC di media zone mo il afta place o di le vent la député bu ko 53 6 le budget e ko 52 will contest it but one seat ni obedi la stakeholder le ko stakeholder bu ñande itel lo so itel be place ni ngla through this medium no je kam ko manke silati député tan ni sabati talul ni sabale banko kan o député tan talul ni saboni political parties ko o femfel lafta ñantale ye law ya contest bari hani député wal fanyata lola ñama amang address adum ben problème wal nat la ñaata ngaje ka fo ko kacabita ka ñame ñing katta ñing lokun tan ni nano be yake ni tel ngam famuta nyanta na political activities mel bekela na be put on hold na campaign materials nyodo medada bawo nin coalition no na say be part of that coalition ila campaign material be falina so man so do ke de batun rola sai kala mol moy ka ko ni men sonta nyinna je sonda ni men so leta asan mati yole fo on West Coast ko ne lafta ni men lafta ni ya traje ni men malafiata ndel ngaje ko malaf so bitale itale yamba bitale so wala yatin nabi ko ngana ngafo mole ka ko asan mati ko ni men malafiata so bitale lo na ko pen gambia ko men ka ko bitale mel bi jeto ya jube ibe fankela nyame bare mbekli rokela moko tanalla mel ya non kafo ko eni UDP la mirale al kata kilenti ya banko ja nyame UDP banko ja nyame banko ja nyale ya nyame alliance on nyata kala nyame UDP ya nyame fanal ya ja nyale ko alena na kafu nyoma ifana na alliance oke ko na alliance o nani UDP alliance oke mbe baro mba bondi nolale kat UDP kilinne baro engage janto yamira boli robe kala nyama manke onya mandi ko man fa nyoboro mandi ko ka badi mboy wala kada badi mboy la kada yalo yamira ka ko be supala de wado do badi ko wala kada so nyin na te kaftamma sa kat ka ko be baro na la modu be bon la de e ko be juslade ko ha opposition coalition talks has flooded but not flooded the Gambia's commitment Carter Bondi has never flooded what do never carry. And so file ko ngani tamo me kabolon ko Gambian ko yaita de ka ko baro be bolale mol ka in the provinces bu ka ko UDP ni baro e ka ko Gambian ko versus baro so baro kana ni de ka ko nintal bota ni nad initiative to that is the answer for him whatever is there will ensure that all the victories of honey Gambian call are still against him and Gambians will still be against him. So, like in Karasar, but Namaka Vice President, Namaka Foreign Minister, you know, Gambia not alone. Gambia not alone. Telling us Susarang and Safunota, Naku, Fasanata, Namut Lola, Ninyata, for more Borna Canania. For Molian Lahidi, you got $1.7 billion. Ibadi Lana, Ntelanga Doku. So, Mama confidential. Vice President, can you women enterprise fund for all line? Nintonya Bekere, Mambureja, Nyanika, above the Kavoko, Mr. Dabole, you push through to make sure Kavoko, new women's enterprise fund, and Lota Bangkok. At Telanga Mambureja for the Kavoko, Gambia government, the counterpart fund, fire put in the budget. Ngol can you manka kaja kavo the new Minister of Women's Affairs gender women's may establish and an man can banko kan minister eta budget negotiations ayake and an manke permanent secretary Jordan but what more I was minister responsible for women affairs la budget I had to go a new ministry by my permanent secretary tata jetone to negotiate with the finance ministry puru ila budget nyanda kadu mala fe kuntwala a new ministry coming up Nata wala tamena ni mol dila ala do kunya bisala so for domandi la ngadol melke kabir be man sakunda tuma mena wo ma important follow so ngamira ngela question answer bar well iko senela ngo man sakunda na president ba ay kankularo ke ako abe do kulalu manza kunda do kulala be la jo kafula keme tansaba ku kende mirada kende kadu ko wo manza kunda do kulalu marsauto ni data marsauto ila ko do kam samsan noye abuka ke sawote o manza kunda do kulalu wal ka tax jole e kata marsauto ka fensan adama baro wuli kebe lulu kadu wakari wala kadi ala fola du ngalo nyinyi fonko nyinyi 30% of 50 of 500,000 bikala about 150,000 ko ne bukabla la job 30% I think so So that will be 650,000. At a money sana. At a tulu sana. Kong di atai nyao nyao ka kong sang. Up to 500 sana. But permanent secretary may allocate 30% diana. Wabe kong sana le. Abu daman sa tayo ay subo presa. Abu mano sana le. So no la jo kafuta. Kaste wote. Barunko. Ni bo la jo kafla. Mele alon kam ko wala mo banko la do kulal fanti. Senelal. Sanji saba. Ila tiyo dakilin no. Ona wal fanal ina wal koma fal yol fanal jube. Niko sen do kulal la jobe kafla by 30%. 5% la fanal ko ka fo ko jari. Allah sene fengu. Mfana mbasa na nyin nangamo. Akana ke $3,000 per metric ton. Comme même que sanji saba. Asfonya onya ayafo fanale ko Allah sene fengu Allah tiyo mbasa na le toni wotonu wuli woro anyanto le folol fanale so da lo fanale dopo keno isi sabar pour katiyo senon nyimbanko kad ko tiyo wala nyimbanko la ko kilo ko sulodi tiyo wala banko la ko sulodi atalam na biggest foreign exchange ana taton na export product so fendila mensi nyafa isu dafi kasenoke tata bonon ko ngani ngani bank fataje in Nyamina ngaja in CRR North me alon ka ko isi hectares and hectares me alon ka ko isi tiyo doku jeton jama soto good yield ya export Gambia ya fanso but ano mankara mera ka ko ni civil servant ni wala salary by 30% of an attack increase by 30%. That is their thinking when they forget in Yinata Senelala. So equabata mebe kerinde otomba jomma mamai azano ka ko atelde adama matel adama baro matel atelo ko amobula la mira la ko de atemna ado ko jol ayon la ko na mira ko so arsalo bitung December 5 al nyanta benkela dembula bral mira la ko arsalo al nyanta nyatinda wala ba jomma bitu abemul
Mandinka by force.
Honestly, what I can do you. Listen,
And please try to keep your questions short, huh? For time. Thank you.
Next one, give it to me.
sorry.
I said, why did you spend your Pakistan from Master Community? So, in your statement, you highlighted that what you do is advocating for Safaria coalition, but not that you do the same time. So, what is your response to those who are saying that you are supporting this because you believe that this is able to be itself? And my second question is, you have also mentioned that you are open to discussion. Here we are rumors that basically the coalition are used to and what we are doing, we are what is the discussion.
The coalition what?
The coalition team.
The coalition team.
Yes.
Of
In
AD.
discussion, CMC, they have come into the meeting. So I don't know if that is
yesterday I also read in the papers that the coalition management committee is coming to meet me, but they have not met me. So that answers that question. Yeah. So the other question is, it is believed that I support the party led, even though I'm not saying that UDP, but I support it with the view that UDP would lead. Well, that is an assumption. If it is agreed that should be party led, and example, the Women's Popular Party accedes to a party led, and they come out with good reasons why the Women's Popular Party should lead this party-led coalition, we'll of course accede to it. We have always said that it is not that we have said that it must be UDP, but we say it must be party-led. And of course, when it comes to selection, we'll put in our bid, just as any other political party would put its bid in. So we are not imposing ourselves on anybody, and we do not and we will not impose ourselves on anybody. So let that be clear. And let it also be clear that we do not find it in any way offensive. We do not find it in any way untenable for us to put forward unambiguously the position we hold on to. If others can hold on to their positions unambiguously, no one blames them. But you want to blame UDP for holding on to its own position, I don't think that is right. I don't think that is right. We have always respected positions held by other people and let other people also respect the positions held by us. And they must stop looking at us as people who are sabotaging coalition efforts in this country. Why aren't you saying those who do not accede to party-led alliance, why aren't you saying that they are sabotaging coalition efforts in this country? Why should it be UDP that should be carrying the blame? Why should UDP be demonized? I don't think it is right. But of course, that is politics. Throw the dirt the dirt and filth on your opponent and see how will them shake it off. And we have been shaking off all this dirt and filth, and we are very clear. I think that is very clear. Yeah?
Female, please.
They are
Any
not,
female or
they are not asking questions.
you want to ask this question?
That one is there. One is there.
Just
ask her. Let them
Okay, can we please have 2 more questions then we sort of put around it?
I go by the name Sven Wade from SSPDN. But in
From?
Sven from SSPDN. And in the car, the battle of Manil Pam, because I'm not a Manil Pam, the Apollo Pam. So many of the young from the group working, understand the friends are who do not amount of the Miano, then who do not have a community program. So let's take it away, the context to my community and to my land.
What did you want?
You mentioned of 1.1 and there's something.
One on the donors conference in Brussels. I think it was in May of 2018. Remember, and I'm sure that's about 9 years ago. I'm sure more than 9 years ago. Yalom Yama, the president of the at the airport, I could come by the minister. A baby temple, the documents, a cobari. Allah you send up, any Ahmad science, the document came. Nanny donors from Toto. Better than Beja, Bako, Kodomen and Calcutta, honey, based out of the jet. So, well, and Kola and Kanukodomen Sotajedo, efforts in your law. But I know what I know, they do Najamako, the 50 million euro for agriculture, to support agriculture. Within 24 hours, Namal San and Tata Paris and Alija Nada. Alcala in Srol Mel for Lanu OIC Srol Mel. For Nico Hanasir Naya at the Dunia Bacon. Lavin Sade. Telling a codo funding in another. Allah Jambo, South Plant Man Bijeto. Telling a dokun, telling a funding. So, Jan wato man si follow, meye menga man si follow. But ya don't can you remember? In any amwele afoko, and the Misada by Nima Potonia. Come go to Lanaco, in any amwele. The Basse bridges and so forth, in any amwele Africa, Misada member from Amakatonia. Intelletata. With my shopping list to China. And I got this, not only got that, but also got that relief for the Gambia. So, new water sita, Mangamenke, Bamba Fola, bay la ñu karo le afa noten no dañu be fula jeto abaraka.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abo. My name is Silvio from the department. As of yesterday, the CMC chairman said that they have not received any official letter of withdrawal from the union. And he still considers the union as part of the coalition. My question is, has the UDP submitted any letter of withdrawal, official letter, to the coalition? If no, why?
Well, let me say, the CMC never invited me or never invited UDP to any coalition talk. It is the ADD that invited us to a coalition talk. And they, those people who call themselves a CMC, they were invited by ADD to be part of the process. So if I'm to resign, if it's required that I should send a written withdrawal, it is not to them that I will send it. I send it to the gentleman whom I really, I respect him and I thank him for really giving me an opportunity to have some interactions with my colleague, Mr. Kamara, for this insight, for his initiative. I thank him. So if I have to write any letter, it would be to Mr. Kamara of ADD, not to CMC. But I think when Mr. Martin went to coffee time and said, look, this is what we have agreed on, the majority have agreed on, sometimes he likes to make it that it was unanimous, which is not. So, but then he will say majority, and sometimes give the impression that it's unanimous. When he said, if those who do not accept this model should go away, and they know perfectly well that UDP does not accept that model, you have to resign. You have to send any letter to them to resign. When you have already told us that you can go away if you do not accept, you have to tell you that we are going away. And you know that our cohesion is party-led. But in any case, does this press briefing this morning, does it leave anybody in any doubt that UDP is no longer part of the ADD initiative? Does it leave anybody in doubt about that? So if they want to use procedural routes to question, to still maintain that we are members of this initiative, I think they are wrong. Nobody should be left in doubt that we are no longer part of it. Yes.
Yes, so, Mr. Lago, I'm going to see what's up with you. You do this now. Let me in the garden now. Yapoko Musol, Purumen Musola, ye Katapuani, Bokoni, Belabla, Navra, so Koni, San Francisco, because Woku Modul Lata, like predicting from a good to that. Then you got the one woman will go for Jibo, all the political parties and movements. The couple of UDP put an order.
Well, the enterprise fund for the enterprise fund World Bank for the support for enterprise fund te yodo ko to wala ni honorable Mamoudou Ndiaye. In fact, the cabinet paper, Langa cabinet paper is present, and when it came to the funding, honorable Mamoudou Ndiaye, another don't okay, was more World Bank representative for Dakar, another Jando have regular meetings with Dakar. And war, Kelengoke, and got cabinet approval, and having got cabinet approval, the mechanism for Kadoku were put in place and were put in motion. So, Women's Enterprise Fund, Mamira, Gambia government caller, Mo Kotembako, Kankaboko, Iteleta Moti. Now, when Kaboko order funds of Sotale, or Melan Kavko, more and we have no problem with that. We have no quarrel with that. But then take a member, that of the Gambia government with World Bank support, war, Telemo, Port and Limbango, in fact, was one of my last officer when I was vice. In fact, it was around budget the 2018 budget session. Make sure Kavoko was put in the budget. And Mambreja is, he can attest to that. Funding more because funding more well, the invitation because already Yalo the Kafoko in principle. Yalo the Kafoko in principle, PVP has agreed with us. In principle, you know that. So there's a high likelihood Kavoko, Dolphin and Benadi, Takafu PVP. And there's also a high likelihood Kavoko, Dolbe, he aided the initiative to movements and so forth. High likelihood Kavoko and Benadi. So, Matrata can on this thing alone. Injecta Kavoko in the model bed, the Dokunyol Sotlade, Dokunyol Mela Kavoko, Nila Bella Mira Lamuklinity, Be Kukli and Gambia. A manke la for the dada manto, but I'm la for the Nanioto, and I'm la for the Mayalanka for Nabaron Kunu, ya itan.
Today, our dedicated support esteemed members of the press and the proud people of the Gambia, I want to conclude today by addressing the critical junction we find ourselves in. The United Democratic Party has always believed in strength, capability of our party to live and to unite. As coalition does progress, a fundamental different vision has emerged. We firmly advocate for a party-led coalition, believing that our establishing structures provide travel record and deep connection within the populace, providing the most robust foundation for effective governance and national progress. We have engaged in this discussion with the utmost sincerity, seeking a conference that empowers a unified opposition. However, the instance acts on an independent leadership rather than a party-led approach presents a significant divergence from our core principle and our vision for a strong unified front. As the largest opposition party, we are confident in our ability to shape a coalition that truly reflects the wills of the people and can divide the transformative change of the Gambia desire. Therefore, while we deeply value the spirit of unity, we must also stand firm on what we believe is best for our nation's future. Our potential withdrawal from these specific coalition talks is not a step down away from unity, but a reclamation of our commitment to a leadership model that we believe will best serve the Gambia. We must trust in the wisdom of the Gambian people to understand our position and to continue to stand with the United Democratic Party as we champion a vision of progress, centralized, strong, and principled leadership. And therefore, I thank you all to the proceeding. Thank you. Media laid upon the full text of the party leader statement. pay before the